my name is Drew. I'm a teaching artist with the Clay Studio, with Claymobile mostly, the community engagement mobile program, also sometimes in the school. We are for Clay at Home, this video, going to be making a slab cup, slab mug. It can also be a slab planter just by poking holes in the bottom of it, so you can modify it pretty easily to different purposes. For this, you are going to need a few simple tools. Clay, obviously, you will want to have a fork or some kind of scoring tool. A butter knife is good to have, some kind of makeshift needle tool like a thumbtack or a nail, maybe even like a pen that you don't need to use anymore or something like that would be good. You'll want to have some canvas or fabric or newspaper to cover your working area so you don't get too much dust in your house if you're working in your kitchen or in your basement, wherever. And besides that, you should be pretty good to go. Cool. So we're going to start with a chunk of clay. This is about the size of a orange right here. This is good. We're going to make a little mug, coffee cup, teacup, kind of like this. To start, you're going to flatten this out into a slab. You can do this by tapping it out. You can flip it back and forth. If you are getting your clay from a box that you bought, if it's already a cube, you can just cut a slice off of the top of it and start with that, and that'll make it a little bit easier for you. If you're getting these indentations here from your fist, just flatten it over by flipping it back and forth gently, kind of like a pizza dough. You want to try to get it as long as you can for this to make a long rectangle. You can always cut away if it's too long, but you can't add on to it, right? So back and forth, and then we're going to cut this into an even rectangle. For tools, I have a ruler right here. Most people probably have at home. We have a fork and a butter knife right here. And we're going to use a thumbtack as a makeshift needle tool right here. You can also use a nail for this if you have it. You could probably even use an old pen or something like that. Any kind of small pointy object. And we're going to first draw out our rectangle. So I'm going to use the ruler, and I'm going to use maybe the bottom of the brush right here since it's softer, but you can also use your makeshift needle tool and trace it out. You want it to be even. If you mess up, you can just erase it with your finger by wiping it away really gently. Get all four sides. And then we are going to cut it out. So like I said, try to get it as big as you can first, and then we can trim it down later. So using my thumbtack, I'm just gonna slice right through. Right, so this is gonna be the wall to your cup or your mug right here. So this shorter side right here is going to determine your cup's height, and this longer side is going to be its diameter, right? How wide it is. So if you stand it up, you can kind of test it out and see. If this looks a little bit too tall for you, then you can cut down the shorter side. If it's a little bit too wide for you, this way, you can just trim down some off of the side right here, off of the long edge, right? I think this looks okay. You can, at this stage, while it's flat, add some texture. So if you have some fabrics at home, like some burlap is nice, or some lace, you could even use like bubble wrap or something like that. You can kind of imprint that into it now. You can also kind of use, like a flat object. Karen used a spatula to make some lines in the coaster video. I thought that was really cool. Right, like some indentations right here. And then stand this up and fold it into your walls. I'm working on a piece of canvas right now, as you can see. I think Karen did the same thing in her video too. If you have canvas and you're working at home, it's a good practice to just put it down to try to minimize the dust that's in your living space. It's not very good for you, like you know. Newspaper works too. Canvas is kind of ideal, but any kind of fabric will do. An old sheet would probably work too. Newspaper, like I said. So now that I have this, I'm gonna slip and score the edges, right? So if it's laying flat down right here, I'm gonna score one on the outside and one on the inside, right? Get a little bit of water, take your fork, and just scratch it up. Both sides where it's going to connect. In Claymobile, we call this scratch and attach. We talk about Velcro, right? You can kind of keep that in mind, and then lift it up and connect it right here. You can either leave your seam visible, or you can smooth it out. It's up to you. If you do smooth it, make sure you just have a hand on the inside supporting it. Whenever you touch your piece, apply any pressure from one side, you want to always be supporting it from the other side, right, to prevent it from collapsing. You can kind of pinch this out a little bit too if you like, and kind of shape this round. All right, you do still need a bottom right here. So we're going to take the extra clay that we trimmed off. I bunched it up, make it into a little ball, and we're going to make a little pancake out of this right here. So flatten it out just like you did earlier. If you are a baker and you have a rolling pin at home, rolling pin is really good for this too. It'll kind of streamline it. And you want these slabs to be like about as thick as your finger. A little bit thinner is okay. Or if it's too thin, it'll start to crack. If it's too thick, it'll just be kind of chunky and hard to work with. You might hear Nomi in the background. That's my dog. She's here sometimes with me in my studio. So, next we're going to trace our bottom right here. I'm going to use my thumbtack needle tool. Try to, get this really round right here and just cut this out, just really lightly drawing it. I'm not cutting all the way through first, just tracing it, and then I'm going to pull this off and now cut this out. You can see that it's not a perfect circle. That's okay. You can kind of clean it up later. And I'm just going to cut this all the way through. Pull off the sides right here. Hold on to this. We can use it for a handle later if you like. And again, I'm going to score the parts that connect. So get a little bit of water and just scratch the edges right here, right? Don't need to scratch the whole thing. Scratch up right here as well, the bottom. If you have some newspaper at home, newspaper is really good for this too. You can stuff newspaper inside of here and that'll help your piece hold up its shape while it's drying. I'm just going to lay this right on top and gently press this in. If you are interested in making a planter, kind of modifying this, you can just poke a few holes right here for drainage, and that's totally fine too. Tap this over and give it like a little gentle tap and smooth this out. And then you can smooth out all your edges right here. You can just kind of wipe it up with your finger. You can also use the side of your butter knife or your fork for that too. If you have like a Lazy Susan at home, that might make that easier for you. Or a piece of cardboard. We use that Claymobile a lot as like a little wear board. Those work pretty well. Or if you just have any kind of like flat, stiff surface, you can keep this on top of that while you're moving it around. That'll make it easier. Great. Make sure that you smooth out any scratches that are on the inside. Clean up all your seams on the inside. You don't want to get food stuck in there later on. Clean up your edges, and then if you like, you can either leave this just like a little tumbler or a cup, or you can add a handle using the scrap clay like I said earlier. For that, there are a few ways you can make handles with this. You can kind of take your clay and roll out a coil, so just roll it back and forth in your hand. You can roll it against the table. If you're rolling it on the table, you don't want to apply pressure downward against it, because that'll flatten it a little bit more. So just roll your hand back and forth using, your whole hand, the whole length of it. Right, and then you can just shape this into a handle. You can either leave this round, you can flatten it out a little bit, just like we did before. Kind of plan the shape of your handle. This is a little bit big, so I'm gonna just trim this down here. You can do like a semicircle like this. You can kind of square it. You can do this kind of half heart shape right here, or this kind of just a round shape, and then just cut this clean like such, and that'll give you nice beveled edges right here to connect to your cup. You can also use this clay and pound out another little slab and make your handle that way. Back and forth. And make just a little tab handle like this. Right, so I could make this little tab, this little rectangle right here. I could attach this onto the side. I could cut out the rest of this. Cut a shape out of here. And attach this onto the side. Right, that would work. You wanna, when you're making handles especially, and also thinking about the size and shape of your cup, right, think about what it's used for, obviously. When you are designing an object, you know, you're designing like the aesthetics of that object, the way that it looks, but also the way it's gonna be used, right? So if you are a person who, you know, just puts one finger inside of a handle versus a person who maybe slides your whole hand inside of a handle, keep that in mind. If this cup is for you, you can kind of shape your mug to fit perfectly inside of your own hand, right? Think about if the handle is for, you know, if it's for decoration or if it's actually for function. You know, this one is more of like a decorative handle. My finger won't even really fit in here. It's very snug, but it looks cute. So it's just for aesthetics, you know. Kind of, you know, keep that in mind as you're working with this. If you ever, you know, go to like open a door that you're supposed to push open and you pull it on accident, you know, it's not a very well designed object. You want to know how you're interacting with these objects afterwards, and you can kind of set that up here. So when you're ready to attach, take your scoring tool, right? We're just using a fork, and score also where it's going to connect. We'll say right here. And just pop this right on. You can also still shape it here if you like. So I want to make this a little more square. I can do that. I can kind of lift this up a little bit. Like that, it's totally fine. You can also obviously pull handles here too, just like you would in the studio when you're throwing on the wheel. Works totally fine, and just let them set up a little bit first. But since we're hand building, this is a little bit more of like a hand build approach, right? And that's about it. You can bisque fire this, let it dry for now, bisque fire it later, glaze it, and then you have a little cup. Thank you.